Welcome to another edition of the Membership World podcast, and I'm really pleased to have somebody I've known for quite a while, and that's Emma McClarkin. And Emma, lovely to see you. And Emma is the CEO of the Beer and Pub Association, and great to see you on the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So for our listeners and viewers, tell us a little bit about your industry, the great work that you're doing, and then we can dive a little bit more deeper into how you engage with your members.
Well, thanks, Gordon. I'm Emma McClarkin. I'm the Chief Exec of the British Beer and Pub Association, and we do what it says on the tin. We represent the beer and the pub sector, and we have just over 100 members, but they represent 90% of the beer that's produced in the UK and half of the pubs that we have as well. So it's a really big job that we have in sculpting the regulatory environment in which our brewers and our pubs operate, trying to get it as optimum as it possibly can be so that they can keep being the beating heart of the high street, keep being in villages and towns and city centres up and down this country and contributing economically, but not only economically, but socially. And I think we all love the Great British Pub, but we really have to use it or we stand to lose it, and we need to support it. And that's why we lobby the government day in, day out to make sure that the sector is given the recognition it deserves.
Use it or lose it. That is almost an advertising slogan in its own merit there, isn't it?
It certainly is.
So obviously we've seen quite a lot of changes in the retail high street, but also notably with pubs, a lot of which have been closing down, particularly in rural areas. What are some of the challenges that you've faced then as a membership organisation?
Well, I came in as the chief executive in November 2019, and I had about 8 weeks of normality before COVID hit and the biggest crisis to ever face the industry, and quite a different job that I was originally brought in for, which was navigating through Brexit. But dealing with COVID was seismic, and we're still dealing with the repercussions of what happened during that period of time. And of course, the pub was hit the longest and the hardest by the restrictions that were put in place. It also changed the way that we work. So a lot of people now work from home. There isn't the go to the office. There isn't the commute, the usual footfall in our towns and city centres. So consumer habits changed, and maybe also with the cost inflation that came after, people feel that they maybe don't have as much money in their pocket. So there was also that sort of tempering of the number of visits that they go out because they don't feel that they can afford it. And so there's sort of a huge headwinds that we've faced, energy crisis, the war in Ukraine, the pressure on our cost supply chains, and literally everything has hit the beer and the pub sector harder than anybody else, and actually recognised also by the Bank of England that everything that the new Labour government has announced at its last budget has hit the hospitality sector the worst. So we really are under pressure, but we're a resilient bunch, and the pub has adapted and diversified for centuries. We've been around for thousands of years as brewers and inns and distilleries, and we just find ways that we keep evolving. But it is difficult, and so it feels sometimes like constant firefighting. But we all love the beer in the pub sector. We all believe that it's part of our culture and makes our society better, and so it makes it even easier to keep getting up and keep fighting every day.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because obviously I'm also a former CEO of a trade association myself, and one of the things I recall is there's nothing like a cause to actually galvanize and bring members together, and even ironically in the pandemic, you'd have thought for some sectors people would be leaving their membership organizations in droves because it was an additional cost. But I think it was the ultimate time to show your real fortitude by actually coming together and uniting with a core message about sort of use it or lose it type of thing, or the eat out to help out type of campaign that I know UK Hospitality got behind. I'm guessing then you've found ways where people have come together more so perhaps because of the challenges that they faced. Is that a fair assumption?
I think as an industry, we definitely became a lot closer. I mean, businesses are competitors at the end of the day. But I think during COVID, we were going to survive this together, or we were, going to die together.
Quite.
And I think that collaboration through that period of time about how we could come together as a sector, a lot of that collaboration has remained and sustained. And I find that it's much easier to work as a membership organization with our members in bringing them to the table together and finding, the majority view and the collective response is a lot easier, I think, because they know that we all have to take everybody else into consideration at the same time. But it gets tougher and tougher for our workforce. They've been through an awful lot. My team have been through an awful lot as well. And so sort of keeping people motivated is difficult, isn't it? On both sides, within the members' businesses, but also for us representing the sector. And that becomes difficult too. So we dig deep, but that passion, as I say, goes a long way when you're digging deep into reserves to where you want to go. And I know that this sector will give its absolute all before any of them decide to close the door.
Absolutely. So what are some of the initiatives that you are doing to help combat some of those challenges?
Yeah, so we have our long-term campaign, Long Live the Local, and that's got over 230,000 signatures on it at the moment. This is a consumer-led campaign that people can sign up to say, we support the pub, we support the government of the day, looking at the issues that will help support my pub stay in its local community and serving the people in its local community. And so that's a really big mechanism that brings in the consumer side. Of course, we have all of our own initiatives that we bring forward around the budget time. And we've held other sort of campaigns as well to demonstrate things that we do that maybe aren't normally associated with us. So we did a big campaign called Pubs Go Live about how we support musicians and artists getting their first gigs and supporting grassroots live music, which of course, if there wasn't a pub that was putting on a gig on a Friday or Saturday night, they wouldn't have that place to be. And lots of artists, from the Beatles to Ed Sheeran to Sam Fender, they all were playing in pubs, and that's how they learnt their craft and learnt how to entertain. Even today, the Lottery Winners band that's just supported Robbie Williams, they came along and supported our campaign. Just demonstrates the reach that we have and what we bring to the table, and why perhaps the government should lean in and support the beer and pub sector versus others, because we can deliver so many more things through the normal trading that we do. And of course, staving off loneliness is another one. We've done big campaigns around mental health and well-being. Having that human connection is enormously important. Very few places left in our society where we can actually come together. And sometimes people will have the only conversation or interaction with another person in a day at the pub, and without that, they really felt it during the pandemic when the pubs were closed. And if that pub closes for good, then it has a very detrimental impact again on loneliness and mental health and well-being. So there are lots of different strands that we bring to the table, not just the economic arguments.
Yeah. And how are you combating some of the lifestyle changes of younger people who, in many instances, are looking for a healthier lifestyle? Back in the day, I remember, we all met down the pub. But I think some younger people, they're more likely to meet down the gym and not necessarily drinking to the same capacity. What has that had on the impact of brewing figures and the like, and also the expense? Of course, it's a known fact that obviously a lot of beer is taxed quite heavily, isn't it? So how are we managing to work with that?
Well, Gen Z, I mean, there's a lot of articles out there about they're not drinking, they are drinking, they're not going out, they are going out. We know that 18 to 34-year-olds are still the biggest demographic of people going out to our pubs. So there is still the appetite for the Great British Pub and also for our great beer. But of course, we're diversified, we've innovated, we have many products behind the bar. You don't have to drink when you come to the pub. There are plenty of low and no alcohol beers that really taste great, that you won't feel that you're missing out. And if you want to moderate your drinking, they're there for you. If you don't want to have an alcoholic beverage, they're there as an option. But of course, we sell lots of other products too in our pubs. We're open for coffee. And, even big chains like Wetherspoons, their most popular product is Pepsi, followed by coffee, then it's beer. People
Really
come into the pub for many different occasions. It's not just for alcoholic ones, but there is still this desire to meet and come in that space together. So I think that there will still be a place for the pub in society. But you made the point about young people, and it is difficult. Life is very expensive, and so we do need to keep a trip to the pub affordable, because we know that from statistics, habitual businesses have more chance of surviving. That's why we're seeing so many restaurants closing, because it's seen as a treat, whereas we need people coming through the door every day to keep our businesses viable. And so we need to keep that cost price down. And when it comes to beer duty, for example, we pay 12 times more in duty than they do in Germany. And this is something that we need to lean in and support our British brewers, but also keeping that pint affordable for all. And it keeps that habituality of coming through the door, being able to afford it. I always think about the man or myself on a Friday night as a young person with £20 in my pocket. What am I going to do with that £20? Where am I going to get the most enjoyment for that? And the more expensive a pint gets, and it's broken the average pint barrier of £5 now, it gets tricky, and but I believe that there is a future for the sector. But we do need the government to support us to make sure that we can be there to serve not only this generation, but generations to come.
Yeah, great. Very laudable initiatives. Obviously, we're talking with Membership World here, so it is all about members per se. How are you finding that you're able to engage with your members? So talk to me a little bit about that.
I think the pandemic was conversely quite good. I think it underlined the value that membership organizations bring, why we exist. I remember one member said, you've learned 10 years of fees in the last 10 weeks. It's something that we're the safety net, we're there, but they really need to feel the value for every year's investment in us, not just on the big moments that come along. And so we constantly need to be doing that assessment of what we're doing. Is it adding? Where is the value for money in the exercise that we're doing? And where is the value and benefit for our members? So that's like a core thing that we run through the business and our organization, and making sure that we're delivering that value. We have obviously the working groups that many other organizations have. And now we have online meetings which complement our in-person ones, but we did bring back in-person meetings. We found people do enjoy coming together. We're hospitality, it's what we do. We like to be in each other's venues and supporting one another. And so we've got a mix now of the two meetings to ensure that those that want to do the online can, those that want to be in person can. So we do we shape that up. But we do look at different ways. We do a lot of surveys to our members about what's working, what's not working. We try and tweak that and change that. So we do that annually. We have a big survey, and then we have a polls test every 6 months. So we can just check, are we online? Are we delivering? Are they feeling the value of what we're doing? Because if we're not, like hospitality, we need to switch up quickly, because we need to retain our membership. We need to grow our membership. But luckily, we are growing as the BBPA, and we grew throughout the pandemic, and we've continued to grow. Because I think people now understand that we do need to have a strong voice, that other sectors are there. They are also trying to get their asks over and shout. So we need to make sure that we really cut through. But I think that on membership engagement, it really is about data at the moment is the biggest exchange that we need. That's where we can really feel we can deliver. Our side of the benefit is based on the data we get. There can be a lot of data fatigue amongst our membership, but once we get that, and once we can also give them insight back, that's where a real value exchange takes place. So it is arduous collecting it all the time and number crunching, but when we can equally provide them the insight back, that's where we really can feel that we're giving that everyday value to them.
And I can imagine that they, the more that, I've even seen you on Breakfast Time or BBC News before, so I I recognize what you're doing is very valuable, including your own social proof and relevance on social media more and more. And I think that's a very, obviously I would say that because I'm an influencer marketer as well. But generally, I think it's a very important point. We've got to show up everywhere, not just on emails. People are finding content in all sorts of different places, aren't they?
Yeah, I agree, and thank you for recognizing the effort that my team puts in on communications and looking at all the different methods of communicating. And we do that with our campaign, with looking at Instagram, LinkedIn. We're now looking at TikTok, but finding ways that we can get our message out there. And of course, we do the mainstream media, and we absolutely have to do that. And we're very lucky in that our subject matter appeals to a lot of the mainstream media.
Right.
The pub and the pint never seems to be old news, but you've still got to come up with something new. You still got to get those hooks. You've got to find a new stat, a new story to tell. You've got to find new voices, new representatives. So finding publicans that are prepared to step out. So I'm not the only spokesperson there is really important. And making sure that there are different voices that are telling the same story. Really bring that to life, because ultimately I am a storyteller. I'm an advocate. But
You are indeed, absolutely.
New people, new material.
Yeah, that's great. Where's your favorite pub, by the way, or is that a political question?
Oh, this is terrible. Shouldn't talk about politics, religion, or favorite pubs or beers. But I can safely say this one because I grew up in Gloucestershire. I really love the Bell at Sapperton. I also love my local, the Old Fleece in Woodchester, and I've got a great brewery in Stroud Brewery there as well. So we support it local, but then there are so many phenomenal pubs that we have all over the country, from Cornwall, all of those down in St Austell, up into the north. We've got people like Daniel Thwaites now doing phenomenal places like Langdale Chase up in the lakes, and then just really great pubs. The smallest pub I think we have in the UK. In a nutshell, and Bury St Edmunds. See any little gems that you find, or wrestling over who's the oldest, like the old trip to Jerusalem in Nottingham, and I just love that, and all the stories that have been told in those buildings, and all the people that have loved them. All the way up into Scotland where I was recently. There are so many great places, so it's really hard to pin one down, and so many great beers. And I think it really depends on your mood, or what day of the week it is. Where I am in the country, I will have my favorite everywhere I go.
And it's lovely to hear you say that, because obviously I used to work in the drinks industry for many years when I was a lot younger, particularly for cider and beer. So I used to visit pubs on a fairly regular basis, it was great. You would absolutely see these little gems, particularly some of the older, thatched roof with beams and everything. And when I used to live up in Cambridgeshire, and we lived in a nice little village there, I remember Christmas Day was a real treat, and the landlord would give us all mince pies and stuff like that. It was absolutely a place for community. And I think you raised a really interesting point earlier, that this isn't just about food and drinking. It's actually about, people coming together. And I don't know I don't know how many of the pubs that you've been into have got games in them, but increasingly I've started to see that as a way of, people are fed up with just literally poring over their phone all day and every day. And we've seen these games cafes, haven't we, pop up all over the place. So when I start to see board games in pubs, I think actually let's just get out let's just get out the chess set or something and enjoy a game of chess over a pint or two. It's another reason, isn't it, to engage.
No, absolutely. And the popularity of darts is coming back. I mean, really coming back. You can go into the old Cheshire Cheese here in London, and on a Thursday afternoon, there'll be like 6 boards full of people playing at lunchtime. It is extraordinary. And I think the next generation do also like what's the extra entertainment value you've got for me here? So you have to always just think, have quality food and drink, absolutely. Conversation over, that's why we sit over a pint. It's the conversation that happens with it. But, what else have you got going on? Is there a quiz going on? Is there a game that we can play? And I know that lots of people are investing in loads of different initiatives, and some of my pubs have also got pop-up cinemas in them, having cinema nights now.
Okay.
It's wonderful.
Wow.
It's like there's so many different things. They're so creative, and really helps bring people together. Sorry, my picture's full.
Right.
Not so lucky, Emma.
That's fine. So let's sort of leave it on you, really. You as a leader of a membership organization, what are some of the lessons that you've learned along the way? What is your proudest moment that you'd like to share?
Oh, I mean, there have been so many highlights throughout my career. I've been incredibly lucky to work in areas that I'm truly passionate about. I've worked for the Rugby Football Union, and I love rugby. I love politics, and I was lucky enough to be and serve as a politician for 10 years in the European Parliament. And now I love beer and pubs, so I get to represent the sector. So I feel like I win every day. If I'm completely honest, I'm enormously proud of getting my pubs opened after the pandemic. That was, it felt gargantuan. It felt like a freedom day. It felt, that everybody could breathe again, and very joyous moment. But I think in terms of personal achievement, it was receiving my OBE from the King. And I had actually been given it by the Queen and awarded it by King Charles. So I think that was quite unique to be in a way recognised by two monarchs. For services to hospitality, and to be able to share that with my team, with my family.
Wonderful.
That was really a beautiful moment.
Yeah, well done, Emma. I'm really proud for you, and I think you've done a great job. I've seen you from afar. I've seen, it's an industry that I feel passionate about as well, having worked in it. But it's not until you go overseas and you realise, however nice those destinations are, they just don't have a pub. Or they don't seem to have something that we've got, and that does make us very British. So
well, during the pandemic, I did a phenomenal amount of international media, and I couldn't believe it, because I was like, it's Australia, Japan, Brazil. Your pubs are all closed too, right? Yeah. But the Great British Pub, we want to know it's still going to be there when we come back to the UK.
Yeah,
and they really care about it internationally. And we need to really respect that reputation that we have back here at home, because people have this great love for the Great British Pub. It is unique. It is completely special, and we really need to protect it. So hopefully we'll keep doing that.
Thanks for joining us on the Membership World podcast today, Emma McLaughlin.
Thank you.